Hello, and welcome to my presentation. I hope this finds you well. So the title of my presentation is Sticks and Stones May Break My Bones, but Words Also Hurt If Delivered Incorrectly. My presentation is on how to communicate negative emotions effectively. Alright. So let's just start with an example of two negative messages. All right, the first one is "you're fired." Okay, and the second one is "it is with our deepest sympathies that we have decided that you will not be moving forward with us." Okay, these two examples both get across the exact same message. Both of them are saying to someone that they are out of work now, and they will not be working with this company. Okay, but the point of this presentation is to show that when you know how to communicate something, a negative message, effectively, it softens the blow of what it is that you're doing, and is just better overall for people, because we feel a certain type of way. You know, we're all humans at the end of the day. So what is a negative message? This isn't a trick question that you're going to find. It's pretty straightforward. A negative message is something that is, unsettling. It's something that brings sadness. It's something that is just not positive, for lack of a better word. So negative messages in business are typically given by executives, managers, higher end people. And the reason for this is pretty simple. It's because negative messages professionally typically have a weight to them. There is some negative effect that is going to come out of this message. So it makes sense that it would be the managers and the people who have power to actually enforce these negative messages who are making them, right? What's also important in a negative message is the recipient. It affects how you structure it. Is it someone who has a short temper? Is it someone who is known for getting angry easily? Is it someone who is understanding? Is it someone who knows that they're not doing well, knows that a message is approaching? Is it even a single person? Are you speaking broadly to the entire company? Are you speaking to only the managers? It's these types of things that we have to keep in mind when we are crafting these negative messages. So how do you deliver a negative message, right? Firstly, you should prepare yourself, right? Giving news that is negative is also mentally draining as much as it is to receive it. It's not something people tend to want to do, right? So you should prepare yourself as well. Now, when you're giving a negative message, you want it to be as clear as possible. You don't want the person who's receiving this message to be confused about, well, what are you saying to me? Like, what's going on here? I don't understand where this is coming from. That infuriates them more than the actual news that they're receiving. You don't ever want them to be in that situation, right? You give empathy, Like I said before, we're all humans. You should treat them as such, It means a lot when you get a message and it's hey, I hate to do this. This isn't what we want to do, but we need to talk, right? As opposed to someone just, they said you're not doing good. You gotta go, I guess. You're out of here. Out, right? It's a completely different situation, and so you treat people with respect. And it is business after all. You do gotta look out for the legality of things, right? If you're rejecting someone from a job offer, okay, and you're for example's sake, you're speaking to a woman who is applying for the job, right? And you say, I'm sorry, you honestly, you were the best candidate we had for this role. You were just the best, and we can't go with you. We have to go with someone else, right? And that woman that you just rejected finds out you hired a man, right? Okay? She obviously wasn't the best if she didn't get hired. But you told her she was the best. And if you told her she wasn't the best, and she didn't get hired, and what you did hire was a man, she now has a legal case against you and the company to say, hey, this is sexism in the workplace. I wasn't hired because I'm a woman. That's the only thing that makes sense in that situation. So you gotta think a little bit. You gotta cover your company, you know? There's an order to go about when we do these things, right? You always want to start the conversation with a buffer, depending on what it is you're saying. Sometimes you don't want to go blunt and go straight into it unless you know the type of person that you're talking to. If you're talking to someone who wants news straight up, you give it to them straight up. But for the most part, we try to start with a positive emotion. For here though, you don't want them to be completely caught off guard when you start leading in a negative emotion. So you start with the justification, which seems backwards, but it stops the rebuttal before it even happens. You know, you start with, hey, you know that you've been late to work a few times. You know that you've been not providing as much as your group has been needing in these work assignments. You've been doing this and that, you know. And they're like, yeah, I have. You know, ideally you'd be saying something that is irrefutable, right? And so then when you lead them into the bad news, that is simply the bad news, they're not caught off. They're not, oh my God, what? No way, I thought I was doing so well. It all makes sense to them in their head, right? That's all we want. Redirection, if applicable. Redirection is guiding the person, you know, to where they need to be. So it's applicable for something like, let's say you're a business owner and your packages are going to be delayed that you're sending out to customers. You say, hey, I'm sorry, these packages aren't going to get there on time. For that, you will be receiving it for free, or you will be getting a bonus, or you will be getting a coupon. This is where you ease the blow after giving it. You give them a band-aid for the cut, right? And you always want to leave a positive closing, right? This is something I've learned personally through high school, where I had to give feedback for presentations. People remember the last thing you said to them more than anything else. Obviously, they're not going to forget about the bad news altogether, but it is a subtle thing, and it lifts the mood at the end, right? They don't walk out of there completely distraught. There's something holding them forward, and that's a good thing. The medium of which you give these negative messages is also important, right? What are the mediums? They're pretty endless. It's however you can convey any messages ever in business. You could use them to convey negative messages, right? And so how do you determine what the right way to go about it? It's usually by considering the gravity of the situation. Letting someone know that they can't leave their bike where they're currently leaving their bike. That's a negative message, but it's not very heavy, right? It's not something that necessarily needs a one-on-one personal in-person conversation where you're saying, hey, the bike thing, right? That could be an email. That could be just a message. So in conclusion, negative messages are ones that don't bring joy. They're unfortunate. They're something that you don't want to hear, but you have to convey them. Everyone does. Everyone at some point will have to convey a negative emotion in their life, and it's not fun for either end. So you should prepare, right? You should get it all together first. It shouldn't be random, off the top. It should be something that is cared for, depending on the gravity of the things. And now you know the order that you should make these messages, and that will help you greatly when you do so. You know the medium. Knowing these things is half the battle, right? It's scary to do these negative messages, to receive them, to do all this, but when you know what's going on, you can build a sense of comfort and really get at it, really communicate effectively, because that's all you're trying to do. You're trying to communicate effectively and leave no confusion and just do things right, because when it's right, then it's all right, My name is Mac, and now I've given you the tools to give a very negative message, so hopefully you won't need to give me a negative message based on grades. Hopefully you'll just have this in your back pocket for another day. I wish you the best. Goodbye.